killing men, dismembering their bodies, and incinerating the remains, spreading them.
Sheila LaBarre is serving 2 life sentences for killing those men and burning their bodies at her farm.
On a quiet farm in rural New Hampshire, 2 men arrived years apart, both hoping for a fresh start, both soft-spoken, vulnerable, and searching for some form of connection. Neither of them would ever leave. When police eventually searched that property in 2006, what they found was something far worse than anyone expected. A scorched fire pit, blood-stained furniture, shallow graves, and a woman calmly claiming she had been sent by God to deliver justice. She didn't see herself as a killer. She saw herself as an angel of vengeance. This is the story of Sheila LaBarre, a woman who lured troubled men into her home, manipulated them into submission, and ultimately took their lives, believing she had divine permission to do so. For more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed to the Crim Vault, or head over to our channel to watch more true crime cases that are as shocking as they are unsettling. Born Sheila K. Bailey in Alabama in 1958, she grew up in a world she later described as violent and abusive. She claimed her father beat her and her stepmother tormented her, and while parts of her story were difficult to verify, there was no question that her early life had left deep psychological scars. Over time, she was diagnosed with a combination of serious mental health conditions, including schizoaffective disorder and borderline personality disorder. She spent time in psychiatric facilities and was often medicated, but her charm and intelligence allowed her to move through the world largely unchecked. In the late 1980s, Sheila moved to Epping, New Hampshire, and soon entered into a relationship with Wilfred Bill LaBarre, a wealthy, much older chiropractor. Although they were never legally married, she took his last name and became the heir to his estate. When Bill died in 2000, reportedly from natural causes, Sheila inherited his farmhouse and began a new chapter, one no one could have predicted. It was around this time that she began placing personal ads in newspapers and online, looking for companionship. The men who responded were often isolated, intellectually challenged, or emotionally fragile. Sheila offered them attention, affection, and a place to stay. But what she really offered was a trap. She would bring them to the farmhouse, where over time she began controlling every aspect of their lives. She isolated them from their families, monitored their calls, and subjected them to escalating verbal abuse. Eventually it turned physical, but the most disturbing part was her justification. She told friends and law enforcement that the men she was harming were pedophiles and that she had been chosen to punish them. In early 2006, Sheila showed up at a local emergency room with scratches and cuts on her hands. She claimed that a man living with her, Kenneth County, had attacked her. But when police went to the property to check on Kenneth's well-being, he was gone, and Sheila had no real explanation for where he'd gone or why his belongings were still in the house. Inside the farmhouse, officers found blood on a mattress and signs of a struggle. Outside, in the back of the property, they discovered freshly disturbed dirt and a burn pile. What followed was one of the most chilling discoveries in the state's history. Investigators uncovered partial human remains, later confirmed to be Kenneth County. A search of the home turned up a camcorder, and when they reviewed the tapes, what they saw left them shaken. In the footage, Kenneth appears weak, frightened, and confused. Sheila can be heard interrogating him, repeatedly forcing him to admit to being a pedophile. He echoes her accusations, almost mechanically, likely under extreme psychological duress. In later clips, he is visibly injured, and his condition deteriorates rapidly. That footage alone would have been horrifying, but it wasn't the only evidence. Blood found in the home was linked to another man, Michael Delusion, who had also lived with Sheila, but hadn't been seen since 2005. Friends and family had reported him missing, but Sheila had insisted he simply walked off and never came back. Now police believed he may have suffered the same fate as Kenneth. At trial, Sheila's defense didn't deny that she had killed these men. Instead, they argued she was not criminally responsible due to her mental illness. They claimed she truly believed she was doing the right thing, that her victims were evil and she had been chosen to stop them. But prosecutors pushed back hard. They argued that she had targeted men she knew were vulnerable, used her charm and manipulation to control them, and then methodically destroyed them under the guise of righteousness. They pointed to how she filmed her victims, how she isolated them, and how she carried out her crimes with a level of planning that didn't line up with someone in the middle of a psychotic break. In 2008, Sheila LaBarre was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She has never expressed remorse, In fact, during her sentencing, she doubled down, claiming she did what needed to be done. What makes Sheila's case especially terrifying isn't just the violence. It's the combination of manipulation, delusion, and cold logic she used to carry it out. She didn't just murder, she justified. She built a belief system around her crimes. And worst of all, she sought out victims who were least likely to be believed or protected. To this day, some believe there may have been more victims. Sheila spoke of others who had visited the farm. Neighbors mentioned unfamiliar men coming and going. But with no bodies and no confessions, those stories remain shadows. The farmhouse is gone now, bulldozed not long after the trial. But the land remains, quiet, still, and soaked in the memory of what happened there. Sheila LaBarre isn't a name as widely known as other killers, but her crimes cut deep because they remind us that evil doesn't always look violent or loud. Sometimes it looks like kindness, like an open door, like someone who says all the right things until it's too late. To watch more grim tales like this, head to the Grim Crim Vault.